So far you have seen how we can use Microsoft Graph to get Microsoft 365 data. Now let's see it in action. We're going to build a JavaScript application to keep your finger on the pulse on what's happening around you. So let's begin. So today we're going to see how you can build apps with Graph. And we have an example of an app that can show you some details about who you're working with. If you're new in a company, you probably want to know more about your colleagues. You want to know about how your day looks like. So we're going to jump in from one functionality to another to show you how we can achieve that. So first thing first, maybe we would want to know our colleagues first, because that's what we're excited to see who we are working with and who they are, where they're from. Now, most probably you are working with people who are spread all across the globe, so you must be curious to know who your colleagues are. So over to you, Waldik.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cool thing is that we work on Microsoft 365. So all this info about whom we work with, what meetings do we have, who works on what, like all of that is available to us already. It's stored in Microsoft 365 after all. So the cool thing is that we can build apps that tap into all these data and insights and allow us to stay in touch with people around us in our work and their work, right?
Yes.
And the way to do it is through the Microsoft Graph. So the Microsoft Graph is the API for Microsoft 365. It gives us access to data, insights, and it allows us to read things from Microsoft 365, but it also allows us to create things, create meetings, start calls, create files. So it's a really powerful API for anything that you would like to automate on 365. Well, as you can imagine, the data that we store in 365 is for our work, right?
Yes.
So it's not available anonymously, is it?
No, it's not, and it shouldn't.
Exactly, right? Because you don't want everybody to be able to see your files or see your email, right? So in order to access this info, you need to authenticate first.
Correct.
And the way we do it is we do it using MSAL. So MSAL is the Microsoft Authentication Libraries. And in our case, we build JavaScript app. So we will use MSAL.js to help us authenticate to Microsoft 365. Right, so here, as you see in a code, we have a piece of script or piece of code, JavaScript code, that allows us to authenticate. And that does a few things. Like one is we need to sign in with our work account to our app, so that our app knows who we are in our workplace. So we're not creating a new account. We use the same account that we use to access our email, our files, communicate with others on Teams, to authenticate to our app. And that is really cool because we don't need to create a new account. We don't need to have database or table or some other file with passwords. No, we're not doing any of that. We use the same account that we use for work, and we use it to authenticate to our app. Another step is, like, just because we authenticate to our app doesn't have access by default to all our info that we store in Microsoft 365. Our app needs to request access to specific areas, like info about files or meetings or emails, right? So these are the scopes that you see here on the screen. And in our app, we will show info about emails, about meetings, about files and colleagues, which is why we need these scopes, right? The last thing left is to get a token. Microsoft Graph works based on OAuth, right? So it requires Bearer token to communicate or to for our app to communicate with Graph, right? And MSAL does that job for us. So we don't need to worry about issuing requests, getting responses, handling errors. MSAL solve all of that for us. The only thing we need to do is show pop-up to authenticate so that users can enter their work account, and then based on that, it will help us get the right token. So far, so good.
Yes, it is. And in fact, it has simplified the authentication process for the developer as well.
Absolutely, right? Because like otherwise you would be seeing a bunch of code calling, like issuing web requests, calling Azure AD, getting getting responses back, parsing that, trying to extract the right. That is so tedious, and it's not even a part of your app. It's prerequisite for your app. So why
Yes.
not instead just enable auth for your app and focus on building the app and not plumbing.
Yes, another aspect that we take care here is also the security, which is pretty important. You just don't want to, like you said, authenticate. You want to do it securely, and this is the right place to be because the library itself takes care of that for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so this part covers for us the auth at that stage, and we will see all of that in action soon. So, but now with this code, we can authenticate. We have a token. Well, the last thing left for us to do is to call to Graph and get colleagues, right? So, how
Yeah.
does that work? Like, Graph is a REST-based API, meaning it's just a URL you call, you put a token, you build the URL, which is the query you want to call, and you get back a response with the data or an error. You could be doing that by yourself, but again, why? Why trying to spend cycles on combining the right requests, building the right queries, putting the filters the right way? Right? Like that is so much additional work that instead there's an easier way, right? So in our case, we use the Microsoft Graph SDK that abstracts all of that away for us and allows us to really easily create the right URLs. And also it has a number of additional features like support for handling errors, throttling, and whatnot. So all of that is already implemented in SDK. The only thing we need to do in our app is to tell which data to get, and we're done. So here on the screen, you see how we instrument or how we create an instance of client for the Microsoft Graph, combining that with our auth, right? Because like Graph isn't anonymous. It needs to have token, right? So here in this part, we basically tie Microsoft Graph SDK into MSAL auth that we created previously. So I guess the last thing left, how do we get colleagues from Graph?
Yeah, let's go.
You want to see it?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So here is the first call, right? So to get our colleagues from Graph, we need to do 2 or 3 things. Like first thing is like we need to get info about ourselves, which is available on me, and then we need to go a hierarchy up in the org chart, meaning we need to get our manager. But we don't want to have info about the manager. We only need the ID of their user, so that from there we can go a level down and get their reports, meaning our peers.
Yes.
So we go a level up, get the ID, and then we get reports. And here you can see like how we use the Graph SDK to build this call. Like you're not seeing anywhere a URL. We're calling the Me Manager endpoint in Microsoft Graph, and from there we select only the ID. And that allows us to optimize our call because we don't want to get all info about the manager, not their department, job title, email, telephone number, about them, and so forth and so on. We just need the ID, so that allows us to cut the amount of data that goes over the line, right?
Yes.
Then, from them, we go through the graph, and that is actually why Graph is called Graph. Like, imagine these nodes that we go through. Like, we went from me to manager, now we're going from manager to their reports, meaning our colleagues, right? So we basically go across the graph, traversing the different nodes that are available to us. And for colleagues or for the reports, who are our peers, we want to have some more info, right? So we want to see their name, their job title, department, city, state, and country. So we want to show some more info about them. The last thing left is, if we just did this, what do we get?
We get our colleagues' information, whatever we are selecting here.
Including ourselves, because we are
Yes.
also a direct report of our manager, right? So, and we don't
That's right.
like I don't know about you, but I am not my own colleague.
I'm not my colleague.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? So we need to exclude that from that list. And that is exactly what we do here. So we get current account of that person that is authenticated in the app, and we remove them from the list of all reports that we got previously.
Correct.
And that is basically it. So how about we see it now in action?
Yes, let's do this.
Here we are in our app. As we said, we're not authenticating with our own account. We sign to the app in with the Microsoft 365 account that we use at our workplace. So we click sign in with Microsoft. And because I signed in previously already, it went directly through. And here you can see the list of our colleagues. Is that what you wanted to see?
Yeah, well, I know their names now, but I'm not sure if that I can understand who they are. Like, I would rather put a face on each of these names to get to know them, because I'm pretty sure there were other information as well around these colleagues, and I would love to know. I would love to know how they look.
Exactly, right? And it's like every single time, like you are new somewhere, whether that's in a team or in project, like you might like that team might know each other already, and to them you are one new name, but to you these are 10 new names. Like, so who are these folks? Like, how can you tie the name to a face, right? So the cool thing is we have their pictures stored as well. Like here you can see on the screen, we can see our own picture.
Yeah.
So we could as well show theirs. So let's try and get their photos from the Microsoft Graph as well and show it here. So let's
this
go
is
back
a
to our...
separate.
Sorry?
So this is a separate call, is it? Is it a separate graph call to get the photographs?
Yes, it is. It is, because that is like right now we will traverse another node in the graph, which is picture and photo and actually the binary of the image, right? Because like otherwise you would get everything at once and it would end up with you having all the info that you don't actually need.
Exactly.
Right? So instead, Graph is more optimized, allowing you to choose exactly what you need. But then it also means that at times you need to do this additional call to get that additional info.
Yes, you keep on extending what you want.
Exactly. So let's quickly jump to another branch so that you won't see us type or me type and code, because I just cannot type. I'm like typing with two fingers, like trying to find the right keys. Like that would take hours, right?
Yes. And we've got only a few minutes.
Yes. How would you know? Cool. Right. So in here, what we do next is we get photos, right? So what we do is for colleagues, for all of them, we get their picture. And the way we want to do it is that even if requesting one picture would fail, because maybe a person doesn't have picture, maybe there was error, like anything, we still want to show the info that we get. That is why exactly we use all settled and not just all, right? And then in our response, we check, hey, did we get image? And if we did, we create a local URL for the binary of the image that we got and associate it with a colleague so that it can be shown on the page. The way you get the picture, we have for that another call, is just another call to Graph, right? So we say user, we pass the ID of that person /photo, and that is actually the binary. If we skip this part, we will get dimensions of an image, like how big it is, what format, but we will not get the picture itself. Exactly. Well, and the last thing left is we want to show it. Like we need a way to show it on a page. And for that, we use something called Microsoft Graph Toolkit. To keep it short, it's a set of web components that you can use in any JavaScript app that allows you to really easily show data from Microsoft 365 in a very nice way that aligns with Microsoft 365 products. So in here, what we do is we use component named MGT person, which is, as its name said, meant for showing info about a person. To there, we associate the person info, so things like their preferred name, job title, department, and photo. And we choose to show the info in 3 lines. Curious how it looks like?
Yes, very much.
All right, let's see it in action. Let's see if that helps you a little bit more.
Come on.
There you go.
Oh,
so now
yes.
you can see their name,
Yeah.
Job title and a picture. Does that help?
That helps. I mean, yes, now I know Alex is a marketing assistant and I can see his face, so I can probably relate when he's chatting to me, or if he's coming on a meeting, I could know this is Alex. This is great.
Cool. Is there anything else that this app could do to help you know more about your colleagues, your work, anything around them?
Well, yeah, I'm still thinking about that first week experience for a new employee in a company, and I now know the colleagues. I can see their faces. One thing that's always again that I'm interested in is to know how my week looks like. What are the catch-ups I have? What are the stand-up meetings? I don't know what's happening that week. So that's something we should probably put in this app.
Cool. Yeah. So the cool thing is, again, that at least, so I don't know about you. Where do you keep track of all your meetings? Do you do it in Notepad, Post-its on a screen?
In my calendars.
Ah, right. I mean, being a dev, I might have like maybe you have a CLI for it, or I don't know, maybe you use some other tool. Like no, you just put meetings in calendar like everybody else.
Exactly.
Perfect. Cool. So that simplifies things for us a lot, because we can again use the Microsoft Graph to get that info out of Microsoft 365, your calendar, and show it in the app. So
Nice.
let's go back to our app. Let's quickly switch to our branch. Cool. And now we have another piece in it in which we load events. Again, to load events, like there's one tricky part about events. Sometimes there are meetings that are just occurring on a single day, right? They occur once and they're gone.
Yes.
Sometimes, however, there are meetings that recur every week, like check in with your manager or your team, daily stand-ups, right? So these are recurring meetings.
Yes.
And the interesting thing about them is that they're created probably in the past, maybe 2 weeks back, 3 weeks back, 2 months back. So if you would just look at what meetings are created for this week, you would miss them because they've been created in the past. They might have occurrence in this or coming week, but they've been created in the past. And in Microsoft Graph, there are 2 ways to get meetings. You can get me meetings, which are meetings that are created, and you will get a list of all created meetings. But you can also get a calendar view, which is basically a snapshot of your calendar for a period of time. And this is exactly what I think you want here, right? You don't care about which meetings are created for this week, but what meetings are you have, whether they're recurring or not, right?
Absolutely, because I don't think project stand-up meeting, it would happen every week, or there is a sprint meeting. It would happen every fortnight, right? So we probably have more recurring meetings than we actually know.
Exactly. So for that, we can use another endpoint available on Microsoft Graph, which is called Calendar View. And we access it through my calendar, calendar view. And for that, we need to set the date range for which we want to get a calendar view, basically the window of time. So we pass the current date as an ISO string, and then we add to it another 7 days because we want to get meetings for an upcoming week, right? So we pass them through the start date time, end date time, and we order by the events that we get back, ascending by start time. So the events that are on Monday are first, Tuesday afterwards, Wednesday, and so forth and so on.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, and then probably for these meetings, you also would like to see with whom they are, right? Because otherwise, like you would just have a meeting and then like, yeah, but who are in there, right? I assume.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to know. I just don't want to see the title. I probably don't even understand what that means
Exactly.
at this point, because I'm new.
Yeah. We'll have check-in with Bob.
Yes.
About what? Who is Bob anyway?
Who's Bob?
Exactly. Right. So the cool thing is that when we get meetings from calendar, we also get info about attendees. And for each attendee, we will get their email address. And for them, we can also get their picture. So again, just to make it really clear, who is who. And again, this proves the point, like how we go through the nodes in Graph. Like we go from me, my events, my calendar, to attendees, to their emails, to their pictures. Like so we again traverse the graph to get different info from different places, right?
Right.
And for us, this is just a single call because here we get the events and attendees, and then we do another call to get pictures. And again, the same way we've done it. First, if we got image, if it came through, we create a local URL that we can then show in our app. And the cool thing is, because we use MGT, because we use Microsoft Graph Toolkit, we can really easily show them on a page. So do we do it here too? Right. So here in UI, we have I think actually we don't use MGT here, do we?
We do.
That was a little trick. Yes, exactly. Yes, that was actually we do. I was a little bit unsure if we can use MGT for that too or not, but we actually can, and that is really cool thing, because we get all these events, and probably we want to get them grouped by day, right? So all events on Monday are just a single group, all events on Tuesday are a single group, and these are the small things that typically take a lot of time to build, and we get them for free from MGT, from Microsoft Graph Toolkit. So here we have a component named agenda that is made for showing events, right? And in there we have a template that we adjusted a little so that we can show data that is relevant to us. So all of that is here. In our code, the only thing that we need to do is to get meetings and then get them assigned to MGT agenda, which we do here. That is all.
Right, so MGT agenda basically is just a presentation layer, and you're just passing the data that it needs.
So in this particular way, this is how we chose to use MGT in this particular case, so that we can show you how you can use the Microsoft Graph SDK to call Graph by yourself. If you use MGT, you can also choose to have MGT load data for you. Now, if you do that, it's so simple that you actually will not see any calls, right? You will just see a little string, you will see basically the endpoint you want to call, and everything else is abstracted away. We wanted to give you a little more insight into how you call Graph to show you that. So we said, you know what? We'll use MGT to show the data, but we will load it ourselves so that we can show you how it works. So that is just, in this particular case, our choice. But you can definitely use MGT to have it load the data for you.
Yeah, because sometimes you may even want to load different data that's not yet available in MGT. So this is one way to actually know how to do it through the Graph SDK, so you can control the data that you want.
Yeah, and also another thing is, I just thought, imagine that you have an LOB app with customers or projects, right? Yeah. So you have data that you don't have stored in Graph, but you still want to show them in the same way. Exactly. You can totally do that. You could load data from your LOB and attach them to MGT to have them shown in the same consistent way as if it was just available in 365. So users don't know better, right? For them, it's just yes, this data makes sense. It is shown the same way across the whole app, whether it's LOB or not.
And the branding, I feel it's very close to what the first party products offer. So that's another plus, I would say, because who wants to fiddle with CSS?
I don't know. I'm a dev. I cannot do CSS. Everything that I build comes out as stick figures. So it's MGT for me is a huge sanity savior, because I don't need to fiddle with aligning divs and making round corners and making pictures. I can just focus on building my app and not deal with CSS. Anyways, shall we see it in action? Shall we see how we can show events? So let me refresh the page. Our app.
Woo.
We sign in immediately. 3, 2, 1, drum roll. And now we see our upcoming events group per day. So that is something that we get for free from MGT. And for each event, we have title, duration, the location event, all attendees, and pictures, so we can exactly know who they are. And we can even we even have direct link to more info about meetings, so we can join, or we can even join it directly on Teams, directly from here. Does that help?
Nice. That totally helps. Now I don't have to go back to different applications. I have just everything I need right here in a page, in an application.
Absolutely.
So that was great. We saw our colleagues. We put a face on our colleagues' names. We saw events that are happening in my calendar view for a week. So next up, we're going to see more around what's happening around me.